They called him the Whirlwind, the fastest cue in snooker, a player so fearless, so naturally gifted, that when he was on form, the table became his playground. Jimmy White wasn't just a snooker player. He was a rock star with a cue, a working-class hero who brought swagger to a sport of silence. He had the talent to rule the world, but somehow the world title always slipped away. 6 times he reached the Crucible final. 6 times he fell short. And yet, decades later, his name still echoes louder than many who did lift that trophy. This is the story of brilliance and heartbreak, of a man who could beat anyone except destiny itself. This is the forgotten genius of Jimmy White. To understand Jimmy White, you have to go back to South London in the 1960s, a tough area where opportunity didn't come easy. The young Jimmy wasn't born into privilege, but he was born with a cue in his hand. By his teens, he was a hustler running between snooker halls taking on grown men for cash. He was cheeky, fearless, and already legendary in local circles. They said he could clear a table before most players had chalked their cue. In 1979, he won the English Amateur Championship, and by the next year he'd turned professional. But Jimmy didn't arrive quietly. He exploded onto the scene. There were already great players, Steve Davis, Ray Reardon, Terry Griffiths, but Jimmy was something different. Where others were methodical, Jimmy was pure instinct. He'd attack impossible pots, attempt ridiculous doubles, and somehow make them look routine. He played with a smile. He entertained. He didn't just want to win, he wanted to make you love the game. And people did. The early 80s were the perfect storm. Snooker was booming on TV, and fans wanted excitement. Jimmy White gave them that and more. He won Young Player of the Year in 1981, made his first Crucible semifinal by 1982, and soon became a fan favorite. Crowds roared for him. They wore Jimmy White for Prime Minister badges. They believed he was destined to be world champion. And why not? He was the most naturally gifted player anyone had ever seen. Even Steve Davis, his great rival, admitted, "If I had Jimmy's talent and my dedication, I'd never lose." That was Jimmy. Genius, charisma, and chaos, all rolled into one. But the Crucible, that was his mountain. In 1984, he reached his first final against Steve Davis. The Golden Boy versus the Maverick. White fought hard, but Davis was relentless. 18-16. Close, but not close enough. Still, Jimmy was young. He had time. Everyone thought he'll win one soon. Then came 1990. Another final against Stephen Hendry, the 21-year-old machine from Scotland. Jimmy led 14-8, 6 frames away from glory. And then, it all fell apart. Hendry stormed back to win 18-14, a collapse that still haunts him to this day. But Jimmy didn't stop smiling, didn't stop trying. He came back again, and again, and again. Between 1984 and 1994, he reached 6 world finals. 1984, 1990, 1991, 1992, 1993, 1994. And the story? Always the same heartbreak. In 91, he lost to John Parrott. In 92, Hendry again 18-14. In 93, a repeat. Hendry 18-5. And then 1994, the one that hurts the most. Because in 1994, Jimmy was right there. Frame 35, 17-17. 1 frame for glory. He's at the table, the balls are open, and he's in control. He has a simple black to the corner to seal it. He lines it up, breathes, and misses. The crowd gasps. He sits down. Hendry clears the table 18-17. 6 finals, 6 losses. And just like that, Jimmy White's dream was gone. That black ball miss became snooker folklore. Every fan knows it. Every commentator still whispers about it. And yet, no one remembers the courage it took to keep coming back. After that match, Hendry turned to him and said, "You'll win it one day, mate." Jimmy just smiled and replied, "No, I won't. You've had all my chances." It was heartbreaking, but it was pure Jimmy, honest, humble, real. See, the tragedy of Jimmy White isn't failure. It's timing. He played in the greatest era of all. Steve Davis at his peak. Stephen Hendry rewriting history, John Higgins and Ronnie O'Sullivan rising in the wings. Any other generation, Jimmy White might have been a multiple world champion. But he was born into an age of titans, and he fought them all with a grin on his face. Off the table, Jimmy was just as legendary. He was a showman, a gambler, a character straight out of a movie. Stories about him are endless. One night, he'd be playing high-stakes cards. The next morning, he'd be walking into the Crucible for a quarterfinal. He lost cars, cash, and even his world ranking through wild living, but fans never stopped loving him. Because Jimmy White represented something bigger than trophies. He was the soul of snooker. When you watched him, you didn't just see skill, you saw freedom. He played the way every fan wished they could. Fearless, fast, and fun. But don't mistake him for a clown. Jimmy had serious achievements. He won 10 ranking titles, including the UK Championship, European Open, and Players' Championship. He reached 24 ranking finals. He won the Masters in 1984, beating Terry Griffiths in a packed Wembley Conference Centre. He also lifted the World Cup with England and countless invitational trophies. His record may lack the world title, but it's one of the most consistent and respected careers ever played. And let's not forget, he made over 300 century breaks long before the modern scoring boom. In his prime, his cue ball control was electric. He didn't just pot balls, he danced with them. Still, the narrative always came back to the Crucible. The curse that wasn't a curse, just relentless heartbreak. But through it all, Jimmy never gave up. Even as age caught up, even when new stars like O'Sullivan and Higgins arrived, he kept playing. He stayed on tour, grinding through qualifiers, chasing one more big run. For love of the game, not the fame. And that's what makes him unforgettable. In 2020, at age 58, Jimmy White won the World Seniors Championship. A moment of pure emotion. He raised the trophy, smiling like it was 1984 again. He'd finally lifted a world title, even if not the one he'd always dreamed of. Fans around the world cheered not because of the trophy, but because the whirlwind never stopped blowing. What's often forgotten about Jimmy White is his influence. He inspired a generation. Ronnie O'Sullivan, the greatest of all time, grew up idolizing him. Ronnie said, "Jimmy made me fall in love with snooker. He was the reason I wanted to play. That's legacy. That's genius." While others chased perfection, Jimmy chased joy. He made snooker fun. And that might be worth more than any world title. But there's another side, the human one. Jimmy battled demons. In the 90s, he struggled with addiction and gambling. He lost friends, money, and his focus. But he never hid from it. He faced it head-on, rebuilt himself, and kept coming back. He's been open about it ever since, using his story to help others. Proof that even legends can fall and rise again. That honesty made fans love him even more. He wasn't perfect. He was human. Ask any snooker fan today, and they'll tell you, the sport feels different without characters like Jimmy White. He didn't just play for himself. He played for us. He made snooker cool. When he walked into an arena, you felt it. The crowd, the noise, the swagger. He'd twirl his cue, grin at the ref, and go for shots nobody else dared. And when it came off, it was magic. He turned snooker into theater. He made you believe that anything was possible, even from 60 points behind. That's why calling him forgotten feels wrong. But maybe it's true. In today's game, dominated by stats, rankings, and professionalism, Jimmy's kind of genius doesn't get celebrated enough. He didn't fit into a system. He was the system, unpredictable, creative, and alive. He showed that you could be great without being perfect, that you could lose and still be a legend. And that's rare. When the BBC airs those montages of snooker history, Jimmy White's smile is always there. He may not have lifted the biggest prize, but his story means more than any scoreboard. Because Jimmy White represents something that can't be measured. Heart, courage, joy, the very things that made snooker what it is today. So why is he the forgotten genius? Because time moves fast, new champions rise, records fall. But behind all of it, behind Hendry's titles, Ronnie's centuries, and Selby's grit, there's a man who laid the foundation for what modern snooker became. Jimmy White showed that snooker could be entertainment, that fans didn't just want winners, they wanted stories. And he gave them one of the greatest ever told. Even now, in his 60s, he's still competing, still traveling, still representing the sport he loves. He's a reminder that passion never ages. When you see him smile on commentary, you can tell the fire never left. The whirlwind still blows. Jimmy White may never have been world champion, but he was and always will be the people's champion. And maybe that's the better title, because champions are remembered for their wins, but legends, they're remembered for their hearts.